Heyo, duckies and dice fiends, welcome in. It is the Chaotic Wholesome Talk Show, Table Talk Show Tuesday. I'm doing the David thing. Brilliant. Alaria, thank you for being here first. House of Dreams, welcome on in. DC, hello. I'm just trying to catch up on everyone who appeared while we were talking in the green room, and my thing isn't purple, it's black. That, I'm gonna have to fix that. But I've mostly got streamer bot working this time. It should be mostly behaving. Vertical chat is not, or horizontal chat is not behaving. That's fine. Hi. I am Kay. I am one of your co-hosts here. And I am here with the incredible co-host who has come in and saved my bacon with, hey, Matt, how you doing? With David being in his situation. So Candace, who is you? And what you doing here?
I'm Candace Magnificent. My pronouns are they, she. I am very happy to be here co-hosting. You can find me at the Candace Marie on Twitter and Blue Sky, not really Twitter, and at Candace Magnificent everywhere else. I'm a TTRPG performer. I'm a streamer, a writer, and a voice actor. So if you need any of those jobs done, holla at your boy.
Please do. You will not be sorry. And this is the Table Talk Show, where we talk all things TTRPGs, from indies to intersectionality. And, you know, there's been a little bit of drama on the social medias this week.
Isn't there always?
Yeah, this is very fair.
What is it this week?
So this week, a certain news outlet decided to write a whole article about how indie TTRPG companies and creators need to be louder, while they linked to 10 different D&D articles and exactly one indie TTRPG.
Well, let's talk about D&D without talking about D&D, but let's also be really direct about talking about D&D, but also excoriate it, but also link to all their products, but also not link to any indies.
So
sure,
they
didn't even link to other articles they've written about indies, which we know exist. Wouldn't you just self-link? It's fine.
Hey, Jason, how are you doing? So, full disclaimer before we hop in. Chaotic Wholesome, I am part of the D&D creator program. That means that I do get stuff from D&D. However, I like to think that I'm not a shill, and as you all know, while I am somewhat particular about the indie games I like, I do like indie TTRPGs, and even if I don't personally like that indie TTRPG, I want to promote the heck out of it. I want people to know about these games and play them and all of that. So that is my disclaimer of like, yes, I play a lot of D&D. Yes, I am on the WotC VIP list or whatever. But yeah, we need to talk about some indies, and we need to celebrate indies because they're freaking great. DC says, I read the article and I'm like, okay, we get you hate D&D. Do you have another point? Yes. House of Dreams, second-rate article that made folks angry was published on Rascal. Yes. That was an interesting one. So we are going to talk about Rascal because I am a big fan of Rascal. For those of you who don't know, I was previously a journalist. I covered video games and TTRPGs for a little bit. So I do have... Look, I was definitely not making my living off of this, but I do have a little bit of experience discussing this kind of thing.
Absolutely.
And I'm a big fan of Rascal. I'm a huge fan of what they're doing. Rascal put out a really interesting article that really, to me, felt like a read between the lines. But we'll talk about that in a moment.
Okay.
So yeah, Candace, I've talked a lot. What are your thoughts? Give us the Candace tea.
So for me, like, I get what they're saying, and I feel like their criticism is valid. I am a very non-traditional D&D player. I came to TTRPGs through a completely different system. The two D&D games that I played right out the gate, one was, both were homebrews. One was like a Western, and then one was Steven Universe. So like the mechanics were really kind of something you worked around rather than learning how to play the game, right? I was working off of a completely different character sheet. The way that everything was like, even approach wasn't really explained to me. It was just roll, and the DM will tell you if you did good. It wasn't like, this is what you need to learn about D&D and how to do it, right? So for me, when I read this article, I didn't get my backup like a lot of people, because I'm not here to like live and die on my D&D sword, right? I love D&D. I love playing it. I think it's a fantastic system. There's a lot of things that it does. It is solid. It is top tier for a reason. But I don't take like personal offense when someone criticizes it, because to me, the best way to engage with something that you like is to criticize it, right? Like, I love Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I have to criticize it. I can't just love Buffy and not talk about all this bullshit that's wrong with it, right? That's silly. So I went into it like, okay, cool, valid criticism. But then like the lack of any kind of links really messed me up. And then also the lack of thought about this whole world of third-party publishing, right? You've got livelihoods and businesses and companies. The reason the OGL, like they linked to an article about the OGL, right? The reason the OGL was a big deal is because that threatened the livelihood of hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, if not honestly millions of people, depending on how big some of these third-party creators are, right? I am in a podcast right now that Three Black Halflings did called City of the Black Rose, right? Like, that is, they've worked with a bunch of people that do third-party content for D&D as well, right? They've made third-party content for themselves to run in like Outlaws Novelists, right, for D&D. So there have been several just examples that I personally have of people, Godplane, right? Godplane would be fantastic third-party content. So to disparage D&D and to disparage Hasbro and disparage Wizards of the Coast, I feel like you can and should absolutely be much more choosy and much more not hold back in your expectations of what you want out of a product, right? You're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes on buying the book physically, buying a PDF, then buying the access in D&D Beyond, right? So that your players can have it. There's a ton of money that changes hands. It's something that people are both passionate about, but also show up for financially. So if you're going to shit talk the releases that D&D has this year, another way in, instead of talking about just indies, talk about third-party creators. There's no new D&D books coming out. Fuck it. Talk about Humblewood, right? Talk about, there's one that's really cute that has cats that's just precious. I think it's called Crown of Cats or something like that. It's really cute. Like, there's all kinds of third-party D&D content out there that's
awfully
exciting.
Queer heroes.
Awfully queer heroes, right? So take those rules. Like, fine, you want to criticize the people who hold the license for the rule set? Understand. Go off, King, right? But at the same time, don't denigrate the people who have devoted their lives to trying to make D&D a much more inclusive and representative space of the people who play it, right? Like, that sucks. So, as we've seen some people, including the big guys, the bigger players in the AP scene, right? As we've seen them move away from D&D, right, and kind of move out of necessarily promoting D&D, even though just the other day there was a huge article with Brennan Lee Mulligan about how he's like helping D&D have this big rise, right? So we get these two very contrasting messages right now about the state of things. I feel like that was a missed opportunity to talk about, instead of just supporting WotC, how can you support marginalized creators who are making really interesting things happen with the D&D rule set for themselves, right? Who are some people who are doing it awesome and doing it well in the space? That would have been a much better and more interesting article to me, especially if you're not going to link to any indies anyway.
Yeah.
And then to link to Mothership, right? That's the thing that really fucks me up. I love Mothership. I think Mothership is awesome. The day Sean McCoy started following me on Blue Sky, I was like, what? It was wild. I didn't know what to do with myself.
Mothership.
This is what I'm saying. Mothership is responsible for like my greatest relationships, right? Like it's wonderful. I love that system. That system would be nothing without their third-party creators, right? They thrive off of third-party content. The very Mothership show that I ran on this very channel was third-party content, right? By a creator, I think called S. Murphy, I believe. So like, you know what I mean? Like you're shit talking D&D and you're having all this bullshit about how they're not coming out with anything new. And it's like, well, what does Mothership come out with anything new? They've championed their third-party creators. And they even talk about that in the article. So I'm like, I get that D&D doesn't champion necessarily their third-party creators, especially threatening them with an OGL 1 year ago. That is perfectly fair. Talk about that. Talk about it. right? Talk about how this is a way that maybe they could keep the dream alive with their audience, right? Is by trying to not just push what they're doing, but also create community and a sense of like legitimate involvement, right? With people who already are offering that. These are people who've been sometimes playing for 20, 30, 40, 50 years of D&D they've been playing, right? Reward them with something. Even if you don't have a bunch of releases, they can still liaise with their community in a way that is meaningful, right? And I feel like instead of just bashing D&D, maybe do some fucking rules oriented shit, right? Come up with some solutions, some fail safes here. Don't just like,
Or
I feel like the guy went and then left.
right. Well, and here's the other thing. Like, yes, absolutely. Like, number one, pin links to D&D stuff. The only link was to Mothership. Nothing else. There was no third-party talk because look, we've played a lot of third-party stuff. We love the Piper's character in Godplane was third-party. It was
Third party.
great. And as it turns out, we found out later, our friend Richard from the Emergency Bar podcast actually helped put out that book that it came from.
So
it was
cool.
like, it's such a small
Full
TTRPG world.
circle.
But like, here's the other thing, y'all. If you're gonna just go like D&D done fucked up, at least do some history with it.
Something.
Right? Like, because
Something.
this is not the first time. Like, the whole reason Pathfinder, which is what, by the way, for y'all, for those of you who don't know, I started on Pathfinder 1E. I didn't start with the D&D. I started Pathfinder 1E with the hardcover books and a paper character sheet. I was trying to build a level 5 druid. I didn't know what a cantrip was, and 2 hours into character building, I still didn't know, and I was too afraid to ask, right? So when I started playing D&D and I had D&D Beyond, I'm like, oh, this is so much easier. No, D&D isn't actually that much easier. It's just the D&D Beyond makes it, which I told Candace to remind me. I am very bad about promoting some of the stuff that we have made and offer. One of the things that we have made and offer is a Google Docs based lines and veils sheet. You have a robust one and a more streamlined one.
If you haven't looked at that, get on it, y'all.
It auto updates. It protects player privacy. I'm really proud of it. And the other thing that we just released today, because we talked about this last week, I play in a Acton Cthulhu. Yes, and with the help from Mimics and Misfits. So thank you, Matt. I play in an Acton Cthulhu homebrew game. And Modifius doesn't have the most friendly character sheets. And I made one that auto updates all your attributes. Like, I tried to make it as D&D Beyond-ish for it as I could. It obviously doesn't have all of the feats and traits and spells, but like you put in your modifier, you put in your stat, it auto does the modifiers, all of that for you. Because especially like Modifius, it's a different system. It's a different set of stat bumps than what they use in D&D and Pathfinder. So I couldn't ever keep them straight, right? Thank you, Candace. I could never keep them straight. So I was like, well, I'm gonna build a thing that DC just asked. You can find them at chaoticwholesomepresents.com, and right at the top there are free resources. By the way, I just rebuilt the entire website. You probably, hopefully won't see too much of a difference because I tried to keep it very similar, but had to rebuild the whole website for reasons. But that's there now.
You're amazing.
Again, that is technically, like, I deliberately want both of these out for free, right? But those are third-party things that we create because we want it to be better and easier and more inclusive for other people. But part of the reason that Pathfinder got such a foothold the way it did was because D&D, 9 years ago now, that is that exact site. Yes, sir. Thank you, DC. D&D did kind of the same thing it did with the OGL 9 years ago now. It might be 10. I think it's still 9. Time is a weird soup. And they upset their community so much that Pathfinder was able to get a toe in and just become a major thing. And like, again, that's part of why it was like, I'm glad they mentioned Mothership, right? Mothership is great and it's done great work promoting its community. I would be thrilled if there was suddenly a big 3 and one of the big 3 was Mothership.
Mm-hmm.
But, um, we've also, and look, I haven't played it yet, and because I haven't played it, I don't have fully formed opinions yet. I have concerns because I know myself and my style of play, but Critical Role just came out with Daggerheart. Pretty clear that campaign 4 is going to be in Daggerheart. They're completely going to step away from D&D.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to be wild. So we've got some big players that are ready to be on the field.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, third-party content, talking about indies, all of that is great, and you should do that rather than just complain about D&D.
Literally.
Because look, I love TTRPGs. TTRPGs are not my entire personality, but it's certainly not an insignificant part of it, if you cannot tell from behind me. But D&D is not my whole personality, and y'all don't make any one system. Just like don't make any one creator or writer your entire personality. Because we live in an age of enshittification.
Oh my God.
And everything is going to suck sooner or later. So like, this is part of what we do at the show is we sit here and we talk about these things and we critique in healthy ways, and we talk about things that matter to us in ways that are respectful, but also, we need to talk about the problems with some of our favorite stuff, because if you don't talk about the problems with your favorite stuff, what the heck are you doing?
I feel like that's a larger issue that's just like made its way to this situation. Like, so few people feel comfortable having very legitimate but shitty conversations, right? A lot of people really don't want to have to deal with confrontation. They don't want to have to deal with difficult feelings. And to me, like, that's understandable. But at the same time, you can't get better if you don't acknowledge what's not working, right? You can't fix a problem and find a solution to a problem if you want to admit that there is one, right? So, like, to me, I'm like, complain. I'm seeing Matt. Listen, I do want you to put effort into your complaining. Yes, I do. Because your complaining can help someone.
Mimics
right?
and Misfit says, you want me to put effort into my complaining? What is this, the real world or something?
Listen, it's going to help everyone. I'm very big on having serious conversations. Hi, Rex.
Hey, Rex.
Very serious about having conversations like that, because that's how you can make things better, right? D&D, I feel like this is like the bajillionth time they've done this, but I can't remember what it was. Can you tell me what they did recently that they had to apologize for? There was something they like wrote out and they were like, hey guys, we're doing this. And everybody was like, no, you're fucking not. I swear to God. D&D was like, oh, just kidding. Oh, it was D&D Beyond using legacy.
There was D&D Beyond with the legacy stuff. And then before that, it was the Hadozi. And then before it just,
every few months, they're like, we messed up. And I will say that's better than nothing. There are some companies that don't reply at all. They just keep doing what they're going to do and they fuck right off, right? So it could be worse. So instead of just being like, no, bomb, I hate that. I like the idea of having a legitimate conversation about the ways in which something is bad and how it can be better, right? They're not doing the best job of that. They're not really super listening to people. They let some people go that were doing that work. That was probably not the best idea. They'll figure that out eventually if they haven't already. But I do think that it's good that these conversations are happening, even if they're frustrating, even if they're not glamorous, right? Because we need to be talking about the reality, right? The OGL, like I was reading the comments on that article and somebody was like, I went to my friends and they didn't know anything about the OGL. And I'm just like, see, that is a number of people that don't vet the things that they put their money and time into, right? They're not actually trying to pay attention to what's happening with those systems. And it's important to do that for like Zweihander reasons, right? Like, playing Zweihander, you got a problematic person that made it, right? You have to then weigh your reality. Do you want to play that game more than you want to give a shit about how he treats people? Wormwood, right? Wormwood is a trash company. You should know that before you spend $1,500 on one of their pieces, right? Like you gotta vet the things that you like.
Yeah. Well, and because D&D is, let's be honest, the McDonald's of TTRPG at this point.
Absolutely.
Like there's a huge number of people who have never purchased a D&D book, who they've purchased dice, right? They have never run a game. They have no desire to run a game. That's totally fine. They show up to their friend who is a forever GM. They sit down at the table. They roll it. They don't keep up with the new books. They don't care about anything official. They only care about what their friend is running.
Yep.
And no, that person is not going to know about the OGL because they do not engage with the hobby in that way.
Right.
And it's an interesting point to think about all the different types of users
Hmm.
of this. And again, because this is the D&D is the McDonald's of TTRPGs, like a lot of people don't care. I want my hit. My friend runs this. It's what I do because it's what he does or
Yeah.
they do or she does, and that's all I care about.
Mhm.
Um,
For those people, though, you have to provide. That's why I feel like it would have been smart to talk about third party, right?
mhm,
In that instance,
yeah,
indies are important too. I'm about to have a conversation with my local gaming shop because all they sell is D&D and Warhammer, right? That's it. Like they've got a bunch of board games in there too, but it's pretty much all D&D. There might be like 4 Pathfinder books. There might be a handful of like Exalted or something like that, right? But they don't really have like there's no Mothership, right?
mhm,
There's no PBTA, there's no Magpie anything in my local gaming shop, right?
yeah,
And they need those things. They need Merkborge. They need things that are more interesting, right? There's no Renegade, none of the My Little Pony, right? So I'm about to talk to my local comic book shop and gaming satellite to be like, hey guys, what's going on? Do you know about this whole world out there? Do you have a buyer? Is there something I can do for you so that you
yeah,
can really beef this place up? And granted, they make a lot of their money off of playing cards, right? Like card games and stuff.
yeah.
But people do go in there for TTRPG resources. They don't even have Vampire the Masquerade in there. You see what I'm saying?
That's
So
one
like,
of that's one of the big
huge.
3 right now. Yeah.
Yeah, like you got to have World of Darkness something, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like I think that like for those people who really don't get into the hobby like that, right? They don't buy any of the books, they're not backing Kickstarters, they just show up at their friend's house on a Saturday night, right? That is going to fall to the forever GM to then decide, am I going to change everything about what I've been doing for X number of years or decades, or am I just going to stick with this and make the best out of it, right?
Yeah.
Like you've got to do that legwork conversationally to present people with other options, in my opinion, right? I'm looking
Yeah.
at this magic set that's about to come out that's basically Humblewood. And I'm like, you know what I mean? like, cool. I'm glad you're harnessing that, right? That's awesome. You should lean into that. You should steer into that, right? For sure. That's definitely, I looked at it and I was like, I need this in my life. They sold me without having to sell me anything. But without that third party content, they might not have necessarily had that idea. So those things go both ways, right? It goes both ways when you have people that are interested and willing and ready to commit time and effort and money into something that you have made. Like that's huge. That keeps you alive. That helps you thrive. And that uplifts everybody that makes content with that as well, right? Like I've gotten followers because people really like Mothership that was run 3 years ago. I mean, I still get people that are like, aren't you Captain Petty? And I'm like, yes, but why? Right? Like, what do you want? Thank you for liking my work. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Like, I think I feel like the article was a little disrespectful to people for whom that is their livelihood. And that's what they've built their entire TTRPG world around. And it's not their fault that that there is an evil, like a big brother corporation that he's trying to set up as like this big power that's ruining everything and not offering what he particularly wants, when there's so many other options to go support other people. If you're going to bitch about the company, give me other ways to play D&D. Right? Like, or give me non-D&D books that are examples. Don't just be like, and then, boohoo, Forgotten Realms. And then, that's the end of your article. Like that's so unhelpful.
They're not coming out with all of these old systems that they're not redoing that. They're not coming out. I'm used to this many adventure paths a year. Like, well, they just laid off a ton of people. So,
hello, read the room, sir. Oh, Hector is saying, I believe they even hired David Peterson, the artist and creator of Mouse Guard for Bloomborough. See, this is what I'm saying. Like digging into that kind of thing, right? And supporting, like there's a lot of cross-pollination they could be doing with their community, right? And not in a, I'm going to take, 10% of if you make over $500,000 kind of way, but in a, hey, like we want to share in this with you.
Look,
we would like to put our official stamp on it, for example, right? Like
we are already talking about D&D. So we are going to also go ahead and once again reference the Death Star. Part of the reason D&D got so popular was specifically because Critical Role was playing it, right? That was a third-party content that massively benefited WotC.
Yep.
Okay. So, here's the other thing I want to talk about. Oh, you had a thought. Continue.
No, I was going to say, like, I mean, when it comes to indies, I can talk about indies all day, obviously. Like, I can just chit chat. I'm excited that Rascal is doing a good job trying to get their heads around what's happening in the space and who's making what. Because like someone needs to talk about it, especially because Dicebreaker kind of vanished, right? They were bought out and really haven't bounced back. So it's like, with as large as this is growing, right? Like after the rise of Critical Role, then you've got it in Stranger Things, right? Which doubles down on D&D and makes it even more of a household name, right? Even if you don't know what TTRPGs are, if I say I play Dungeons and Dragons, you know at least a little bit that I roll dice and there's figures and stuff, right? Like at least a little because of that, right?
Like I try to explain, I had my 3DS stolen years ago, and I'm trying to report it to the cops, and they were like, "What?" And I'm like, "It's like the new Game Boy." Oh, cool. Okay, got it. Right?
Yeah, like it's in that lexicon. So I feel as though a lot of things were done a disservice in this article, but I don't know. I feel like there needs to be a follow-up or something like that where they at least link to other articles that give you recommendations about other games to play instead of just shitting and leaving.
And so, real quick, I do want to shout out. There are some incredible threads on Blue Sky right now about go watch One Shot. Here are places to go. Party of One.
Love One Shot.
Go find all of these incredible podcasts and shows that are featuring us. We feature a lot of indie creators. Anyone who has the time and hopefully in the right time zone to come on and talk to us about their system, we want to talk to you about it. As long as you're not. There's some people we don't want to talk to because they're less than great, right? But outside of that, the amount of time I try to spend vetting guests is, Ilaria says, I wonder if Critical Role was responsible because I hadn't heard much about D&D in the years before that, and all the other odd reference. Nothing since the animated series from the late 80s. Yeah, Critical Role is one of the main reasons for D&D's success, and they were openly acknowledging that for a while, and they've seemed to kind of that is a little bit, which is
and now we have Daggerheart.
Yeah, and now there's Daggerheart. Because when the OGL came out, everyone. So this is an interesting thing too. When the OGL was announced, everyone's like, Critical Role needs to take. Critical Role needs to. Critical Role needs to. They will Critical Role, and I'm like, Critical Role cannot. Critical Role has contracts. Critical Role has NDAs and non-disparagement clauses, right?
Seriously, yeah.
Critical Role, everyone got really upset. Critical Role did finally put out a thing. They're like, they put out something that was very we are creators. We have our own, we have Darrington Press now. We have our own company. People were like, that wasn't fair. And I'm like, they just straight up told WotC in the nicest way, heck, we're making our own system. And then they did, right? I'm like, that is, people were like, no, they didn't. It wasn't strong enough. Y'all, they straight up said, we have our own publishing company. Fuck around and find out. And that's exactly what happened, right?
There was a warning. There were warning shots.
But I want to talk a little bit about, look, we can sit here and complain about various journalists doing a good job, doing not a good job. We could talk about good takes, bad takes. But everyone here, plus they had to get Daggerheart started way before the OGL. Exactly. Matt Mercer was like, I want a more narrative system for ages. So that just lit the fire, I'm sure. But everyone here, I assume everyone here, is a fan of indie TTRPGs. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about how can you, even if you don't have a talk show, even if you're not a performer, even if you don't make these decisions, how can you help a system, a game, a creator that you really like, or even if you don't, how can you just help indie TTRPGs as a whole? And I'm not going to get too on my soapbox about this because we all know, we all hear it. It is so true, right? Leaving a comment, retweeting, reskeeting, leaving a review. Putting 5 stars on a thing. We know this. I can tell you the algorithm shows when we post one of these videos on YouTube and a community member goes in and hits a couple, hits a like, we see the algorithm go up. It is, even with a channel as tiny as ours, you can see it. It definitely works. The start of a K-rant, look. someone's got to take up the slack, right? Someone's got to do it. And again, this isn't the rant that I want to do because we all hear it and we all know it. It's just, oh, I have to log in. I have to leave the comment. I have to remember to do it. But good gravy, does it help? And here's the
It
thing,
really does.
even if it doesn't help with the algorithm, which it does, just having someone say, I like the thing you made.
That goes so fucking far.
As a creator, y'all, holy cats.
That's everything.
Again, I'm gonna like toot my own little horn here. Because I like flailed. Candace got a message. Hannah Rose reskeeted my the post about our Lines and Veils doc, and it's like, this is exactly what I needed. This is a great resource. And I'm like, something that I made, like an actual consummate professional is like, this is what I need. This is a great resource, right?
Yeah.
Like, it means so much. Even if she had messaged me privately, it would have been like, great, thank you. I am like, we get a comment on the Emergency Bar podcast, or someone joins the Discord and is like, is season 4 coming? Because I just found this and I love it. And it's like,
emotional. The other day,
so
I had
emotional.
somebody, a disaster queer, Alyssa, wonderful, wonderful player. They're fantastic. They live. I will not say what Blue Sky's tweet is. I will not say it. You cannot make me. They
love
retweeted.
it. I love it. No, I will. Do you want me to
awful.
make you like it? Do you want me to make you like it?
All right, go ahead, Kay. I'll hear your pitch.
The community decided it's reskeets. The people who run Blue Sky hate the term, which is just what makes it so funny.
Can I tell you, if I were Taurus or Aries enough for that, I'd be so thrilled. But I am not. I am not.
Fair,
Instead,
fair.
I hear from the windows to the walls, and I just get really. I'm like, it just gives me an automatic frown emoji.
I am decently sure I am the devil because I am Gemini Sun and Taurus everything else.
That's what I'm saying, Trixie.
It's
So
a
of course
problem.
you like that.
It's a problem.
Oh, you hate it when I do this? What about with this one?
What about that?
No. I can't.
Yeah.
I get very like,
Blue Sky does not. The people who made Blue Sky don't like them being called skeets or reskeets, which just entertains me to no end.
oh, no. Okay, so Alyssa retweeted on Blue Sky a post, live tweeted, if you will, the drop of an all disabled cast, Bluebeard's Bride that I was in, called A Haunting Beloved. And like we made this months ago. We made it like all the way back in, I think, February or March or April.
Wow.
Right? It was eons ago that we made this show, right? And it was it won a bunch of nice awards and stuff at the Rainbow Roll Fest in June. That was lovely, right? It was really a very big honor, but only like clips kind of came out, right? It wasn't like the full production. So to have that finally launch was amazing, right? Everybody was really excited. Then Alyssa did a live tweet, and seeing someone's thoughts on your work is not something it ever occurred to me that I would like. Like, I don't think it ever occurred to me that I whenever I would see someone live tweeting stuff, I was always like, it gives me a lot of anxiety. What if someone says something that I really was hoping nobody would notice and they're just going to talk about that the whole time, right? Like, very anxious.
Yes.
It made me.
Yes.
But seeing, like, as another disabled person, as another chronically ill person, seeing their reactions to little things that we're putting in there as people who experience these chronic illnesses, right? People who have mental health issues, seeing that representation matter and affect somebody like that. And then for them to even like be publicly, right? It's one thing if somebody writes to you directly, but to be publicly like making this a part of your social media that everyone can see, like it was so beautiful. And I think that like using social, I think a lot of times we kind of take for granted how social media works, right? Like we've had it for, not forever, but for long enough that I think it feels kind of rote and common.
Give me just one moment, Candace. Thank you, Spirit Bear and Happy Little Dumpling for the follows. Continue.
Thank you. So for me, I'm like, okay, well, when you think about like sharing your work, right? Whether it is what we do with APs or what you've been doing with like actual writing or tools, right? When you share that work, if somebody talks about it, like you talking about it and waving your flag about whatever it is that you love, even if it's just you running a game, right? Like
Mhm.
we ran, I've been, I said this last week, but I've been in something called Wayward Autumnal, which is a game that is using the Under the Autumn Strangely system, right?
Mhm.
Being able to flag wave for that led me to another session of that with a different table, right? With people I really enjoy, and has now led me to a third thing that I'm doing at the end of the month, right? Because the
Amazing.
creator was like, hey, I really like your enthusiasm. And I didn't do that to get anywhere with that person, right? Graham is fantastic, but that wasn't my intention. I just really wanted to let them know that their shit is great. A few years ago when we had our TSL stream, right?
Yeah.
Like being able to tell April Kit Walsh to her face that she's amazing
Yep.
was life changing. And that's something that, like House of Dreams, they're about to kick off something really fantastic. This huge, large scale TSL tournament, basically, that's going to be happening at some point
Mhm.
this year. Really, really exciting. Shout out to the Rose Court. It's awesome. My life fell apart, so I have not been able to devote the time that I need to it, but everybody's life fell apart. So I'm feeling very cared for and very loved. Um,
We do have an episode about that uh,
yes.
on the YouTube. So
Thank you.
YouTube/@Chaoticals.
Yeah, so my ability to give that information, to give that feedback to April, right, has now spurred me to help with this other project, right? And hopefully
Mhm.
get her buy-in on this other project and her to notice this other project, because it's so important and it really matters. And like, it's a big part in our community for people to know that like your shit is long lasting. Sometimes you write
Yeah.
something and you think it's just going to be like a, a little blip, right? You make something, you're like, and then you walk away, right? And people
Yeah.
don't think about it. The day that I posted on Itch to S Murphy's page, hey, just want to let you know I ran Alone in the Deep and we had the best fucking time. Thank you so much for writing this module. It was amazing. The second I read it, I fell in love and I knew I had to run it. Thank you so much. It was my first Mothership game. Like, they wrote me back and were like, oh my God, thank you so much. I can't believe I wrote this like 4 years ago. Thank you. This is old. Thank you. I have a new thing coming out, right? Like watching a creator get excited
Mhm.
is like so freaking worth it, right?
Yeah.
And like there's no better way than to really connect with something that you love than letting someone know. Totally random example. I was booked for a VO gig for an upcoming video game that is done by a Shell in the Pit, that's a studio that's done tons of video game work. And I finished playing Mineko's Night Market a month later after I had recorded everything. And the woman that I was corresponding with, that's the producer that booked me, her name was in the credits of Mineko's Night Market. And I was like, oh, I know that person. And so I like wrote an email like, hey, this is probably like super weird because we are not friends and I barely know you. But I saw your name in Mineko's Night Market and I wanted to tell you I'm real proud of you, buddy. That's awesome. You're doing a fucking great job. And I loved the game that you just made. And they were like, this is not weird at all. It's honestly so fantastic. I've been having a really awful day. And you've just made me feel so much better. Thank you for reaching out, right? It took me 5 seconds.
Yeah.
I cannot tell you how good it feels to reach out to a creator and tell them how good their work is. I can tell you from both sides of that equation, as a creator, as someone reaching out, it's like a both ways kind of thing, because the creator gets the, and then you get the, because you've reached out.
Yes.
It's really good. I highly recommend.
I can also tell you this is the thing that I do, and this is the thing I encourage every creator that I know to do. We actually did this. We have it's a cast only channel in the Emergency Power Podcast Discord, where, and I do this for my own personal stuff. When I get a nice comment, be it on Discord, be it a DM, be it a tweet, I screenshot it and I put it in a folder, and it's just called Good Vibes, because y'all, we all have bad days. We all have days where it's like, I'm wasting my time. What am I even doing? Why does this matter? Right? And when you are in that moment, you can go, wait, it's not going to make me feel better, but let me just go look at this. And I open that folder and I start reading, and y'all, I get teary-eyed. And I'm talking, I have Richard, Emergency Power Podcast, a personal friend, someone that I talk to every chance I get, wrote a whole thing about something that I had created. And that is in there, right? This is just a personal friend. It means that much. In a way, it almost means more, because it is someone who I know who went, I love this thing so much. I am now obsessed with it. Not because it's you, because it is the thing, and the fact that it's you makes it even better. So if you are a creator, if you are a streamer, if you are whatever you are doing that you are creating cool stuff, make that folder, keep those screenshots, because I cannot tell you how much it gets you through. And if you can do that for, like, your favorite creator has the day. They all have the day where they're like, what am I doing? I'm wasting my time. Everything I make is shit. I hate this. And your comment could be the thing that gets them to go, no, I don't suck. I'm gonna go make the next thing.
Literally.
Do that.
And it happens more than you would think. I think, like, as I've moved through this industry and I've, like, met people at all levels of, like, TTRPG space, right? I've had, you know, albeit short conversations with bigger people, right? Like Spencer Stark is the creator of Alice is Missing, of Candela Obscura, of Daggerheart as well, right? He's a huge name in tabletop rules and game writing, right? And Kay and I had a conversation with him at a party a few years ago. I don't think I've had a nicer conversation with someone at that level. Honestly, like, had more than enough time for me. Like, I expected a quick, oh, hey, how are you doing? I was like, are you Spencer Stark? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, okay, that's the end of the conversation. He was like, who are you? And I was like, hello,
Yeah.
This is my friend Kay. It doesn't matter who I am. Anyway, it got real awkward. But he was really understanding, right? And he was very sweet. He was very kind. He was appreciative.
So kind.
The day that I played Alice is Missing, because I follow him on Twitter, I was just like, he was nice last time. And I wrote him a little message. I was like, hey, buddy, master achievement. I know everyone's already told you and you won a bunch of Ennies for it, but also great game. He was like, I'm so glad you had a good time. Like, yeah, there are people that are way less famous that won't even reply to me when I'm like, hey, do you want to do a charity stream? Which, like, no judgment, right? No shade. But, like, that just speaks to the caliber of that person. And granted, while, of course, it's easy to make time for someone who's complimenting you, that still shows you that you are relevant in the space. So at any level, like, don't be afraid to tell people, you know, I met Matthew Lillard over the summer and I embarrassed the fuck out of myself, but he knows that there is a person who may or may not be called Candace, that may or may not live somewhere in this country, that has had a crush on him for 30 years and thinks he's just swell. So, you know, it doesn't matter how big or small you are, friend, you tell them. You tell them how you feel.
DC says, I ran a charity game using someone's third-party adventure. I didn't expect the author to be in chat. I'm glad they liked what I did. See, like, that is so cool. And y'all, look, okay, real quick before I jump into the next thing, y'all, my first PAX Unplugged, I saw Mark Meir just walking the floor, and he was clearly, like, leaving a booth that he was doing a thing at to go on a break. And I'm like, and look, y'all, I didn't play Mass Effect, so Shep is not, I know, right? I work in video game. I know Mass Effect, but, like, Shep is not my thing. But I knew him from the TTRPG space, right? But also, I know him as a voice actor because I work in video game. So I'm like, Mr. Meir, don't want to take your time. I just wanted to say, you know, I love Brother Uzziah. I love what you do. Like, thank you for, you know, Black Dice Society got me through a lot of stuff, right? And he's like, oh, thank you. And this, y'all, I have stolen this. I have stolen this from him because the impact it had on me. He goes, can I take a picture with you? I've stolen that now. Hey, crew, how you doing? When I did this at PAX Unplugged, someone at PAX Unplugged at the Cirque Bar was like, are you okay? I'm like, can I take a picture with you? He's like, can you take a picture with me? And I'm like, yes, this is how I want people, like, if we put this kind of kindness in the world, we're going to get more out of the world. So that's what I want, right? So I'm like, I do that. And then, you know, we take the picture. It was so kind of him. And he goes, and thank you for watching the Black Dice Society. And then just strides off with those long ass legs he's got. And I'm like, that man just oozes Riz, right? Like, good, great. And again, Commander Shep, like, he was so happy to take 3 minutes out of his day to talk to me, to take a picture. And it meant a lot to me. I feel like maybe he's got a little folder of, like, these are the people who recognize and like me, right? Because that's also got to be a nice little, like, because again, I guarantee you he has it too. Also, crew, I love Duck Detective. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I did.
Wait, what? You love Duck Detective? So I auditioned for Duck Detective, didn't get it. And that's okay. They picked really good people, like my friend Deshawn. Shout out to Deshawn. Deshawn plays the bear, the bear boss. and he's wonderful. Deshaun and I are in an upcoming podcast called Children of Mandalore together, as well as Alice in Blankland. So if you want to go give some love to Deshaun Ricks, he is great. He is on Blue Sky, and he's wonderful. So
See how small, when we talk about how small this industry is, right? like TTRPGs and video games are so, especially in voice acting or so. Had another thought. It had to do with what, and I wanted to get the Mark Mears story out, but it had to do with what DC said, the author being in chat and like did. And I think I've lost what that train of thought was now. And maybe I'll get it back.
Well, I can say with what DC was saying that, like, in those situations where the creator is in chat or the creator shows up and sees what you're doing and they're excited, I feel like there's, like, honestly no better feeling, because the feeling is like the creator's like, oh shit, someone's running my fucking game right now? Are you kidding me? And so the creator shows up and is like, oh, right? And then there are people playing the game. They're like, gosh, I really hope the creator sees this because they did a great job and I'm really thankful for them. Oh, the creator's in the chat. They approve of what I'm doing. Oh! And then everyone's like at the same time, which is such a good vibe. Like, it's such a good vibe. And I feel like that is what this community needs more of, is very good vibes, because this community is very, very, very used to bad vibes a lot. Like, the fact that this article wasn't just called out for being garbage and people moved on shows that I feel like people have a hard time with the trashier parts of this community, which every community has the trash parts. Every single one, right?
Yes.
Voice acting has some trash ass parts to it.
Yep.
You know, it does. So, you know.
Matt says I would throw hands to be able to watch someone run something I made. And
oh, you're not gonna have to do that, pal. I'll be in touch. Well, you know.
So here is, I need to get my paws on duality.
Yeah.
So
don't fist fight. We're here for you.
I also wanted to take a minute to talk about, like, if you do have a channel, if you are running streams, especially if you're like, ooh, I want to run something really cool on stream. I want to tell a really cool story. We talk a lot behind the scenes. I don't know how much I've said it on the show at this point about, we try to be smart about what we do. Like, when I cast for shows, I try to make sure that there is a mix of, like, bigger, better known names and smaller up and coming names, because I want to, rising tide lifts all boats, right? I want the smaller performer who's got this really dedicated group to find these bigger performers and expand that circle. I want the bigger performers audience to come over and find the incredible talent. We think a lot about, you know, diversity, about table cohesion, about personalities, about the right people to play the kind of story that we're telling, right? So there are many layers to casting and getting it right, because you can have all of the big names, and if they don't get along, you are not going to have a good experience.
Absolutely.
So there are many, many different aspects that go into it. One of the aspects that goes into running an AP or a podcast or whatever you're doing is picking the right system. Mm-hmm. And a really important, because it sucks that we have to talk about this. Let me be very clear. It sucks that we have to talk about this. We should just be able to go out and tell incredible stories and give our best performances, and everyone will find it and love it. But that's not how it works. That's not how it works either with when you're making a TTRPG, right? You have to have your pitch. You have to know who you're targeting. You have to know how to market. It's terrible that we have to do all these things. Artists are just as bad right now. You can't just be a good artist. You have to know how to market yourself. You have to be good at social media. It's terrible. It sucks. Capitalism is terrible. The enshittification of everything is bad. But one of the things to consider when you are getting ready to put together a podcast, an AP, any kind of show, any kind of play that you want eyeballs on, is what system am I going to run? Because yes, D&D has a huge baked-in audience. It also has a huge number of people running games in it. World of Darkness, again, big slice of the pie, a lot of people playing them, right? If you're playing some of these smaller systems, if you reach out, especially, y'all, with a lot of indie creators, if you reach out to an indie TTRPG, especially a one-man show, and say, I want to run this game, most of the time, they'll like make sure that your channel's legit, and they'll be like, can I give you stuff? What resources do you need? But especially, y'all, if you have bought it, and if it's a $20 system, please, or $5, please go buy it and then tell them, I want to run this. They will show up. They will send people. They have a baked-in audience, right? And most people are great. Not everyone in the space is great.
Sure.
Sooner or later, you're going to find someone in the space who's not great. And them not promoting you doesn't mean they're not great, right? But most of the time, especially if you're running a smaller system and you say, hey, I'm doing this, especially if it's for charity, right? Even with WotC, I reached out to WotC and I'm like, hey, we're running the Juneteenth, or not the Juneteenth, the Pride Month charity game with Urban Bohemian and Stellar Encore and Candace and DM Jazzy Hands. And no, that was different. We've run too many games. But I said, like, we're running a charity game with these people. Like, this is the cast. They're incredible. And WotC was like, yeah, we can promote it. And they sent us dice, right? Like, if you reach out, people will generally help in this space. Not always, but generally. And as you're seeing from people in the chat, from those of us sitting here on camera telling you, you're saying, I appreciate this thing, I watched this thing, I enjoyed this thing, means so much to us.
Absolutely.
It means so much. And if you are independently going, I like your system, I have independently from you bought the system, made the overlay, cast the thing, marketed it, yeah, they're going to want to promote you. Yeah, they're going to want it because you are celebrating their work and helping them. You are making an artist's dream come true. Because y'all, when I've had people draw fan art of our streams, of APs that we've run. And when someone draws me fan art, I melt. When someone leaves a comment, I melt. It is great. So don't be afraid to be a fan. Don't be afraid to promote the things you love. And okay, maybe you're a little cringe, right? But Candace lived through their cringe.
I'm okay. I came out the other side. I arguably have had several moments of cringe that perhaps not everybody knows about.
Yeah, I've definitely. I had a moment with Joe Mad, who was, my life is a weird thing. I got into art because I wanted to draw like Joe Mad when I was a kid. And then Joe Mad quit comics. And I loved his Battle Chasers comic. That was the thing I wanted to get into comics for. And then I was in comics, or I was at DeviantArt, and then I left DeviantArt to go do video games, and I was writing reviews for video games, and I got to get at an E3 behind closed doors sneak peek at Battle Chasers, the video game, that he had stopped doing Darkstalkers, started his own studio, made a video game off his comic, and I got to be like, Joe Mad is the whole reason I'm in this thing. And he's like, well, I'm Joe Mad. I'm like, I know.
I can't look you in the eyes right now.
This is I don't often get this awkward, but here we are. This is 12-year-old baby K going, I want to draw like you.
Aww.
I can't draw like him, but
still though, finding out you're the inspiration for someone's reason for everything that they do.
Battle Chasers is incredible.
While that's like heavy as fuck, it's like heavy in the best way. It's heavy, like weighted blanket heavy, where you're like, yeah.
Yes. It was an amazing game. And he did a League of Legends one as well, which was really cool. If you haven't seen his Riot Forged League of Legends, it's Misfortune, it's piratey.
Yes.
But there's another thing that you can do as a fan, which is incredibly important, not just, and this is my getting off my soapbox about itch and retweets, and it's something that a lot of people don't do, because I feel like a lot of people don't know. You look at the comments on that article saying, indie creators should be loud, and there's a lot of comments. Rightly so. Whenever you see an outlet write an article about an indie, write an article about anything other than indie, write an article about anything that you care about. And this includes TTRPGs, video games, especially video games, because so many video games come out that it's so difficult for outlets to cover indies. Comment. like the article if you have the option, comment, because editors have to pitch to their publisher. They have to make an argument for it. And if they put up 10 articles about indie TTRPGs that get okay numbers and no comments, they're going to have a hard time pitching that. The outlet isn't going to prove that because it's not going to get eyeballs, and it's not going to go in and comment. Say, thank you for writing this. This is one of my favorite systems. Or I found this system and I bought it. Thank you. Or, hey, I'm going to run a stream because of this article, right? If you do that, it is going to be so much easier for them to cover indie games.
Mm-hmm.
Tweet those articles. Tell your friends to comment. Celebrate when an outlet covers an indie. Because the reason they cover D&D is it gets clicks and it gets comments. And
Yep.
we all know outrage sells. So let's
Yep.
stop making outrage sell and let's make celebration sell.
Absolutely agree with that. Fandom is something that I feel like has been twisted by the internet, but there's a real opportunity for us to kind of put a finer point there in giving a fuck about what we want. I am somebody who loves Savage World. Um, their community is really fucking strong. They've got such a strong community. I played some early games in my career for Savage Worlds because the GM that I had at the time, my gaming sensei, is their major layout person, right? He does most of their layout and design. So he's very close with Shane, who's the creator of Savage Worlds, and he was my first GM. My first experience GMing was because we were in the pandemic. Savage Worlds had done a very quiet deal with Pathfinder to release Savage Pathfinder, right? Because Savage Worlds is not really a fantasy system, so they were like, we want fantasy. Who does fantasy? Great. Pathfinder, cool. We're gonna bridge that gap. So they bridged the gap. We have a Pathfinder that is Savage Worlds rule set, but Pathfinder lore and history and things like that. And it's very cool. It's a very official thing. Carl had actually been running it for us as a home game at first, right? So like it was really kind of a playtest, I guess, experience, but there was an NDA and he couldn't say that, so he was just running the equivalent because he had the game, so he was like, we're just gonna figure it out. And then when the actual text came out and it was approved, then we swapped over to that. But there was a long kind of pause in between because the pandemic had happened and we weren't playing together anymore. And so Carl was like, listen, as I'm working on this big project, now that this is a real thing, would you want to run a game? Because I really just don't have the time, right? So because of that, when it came time to have the first kind of big like live streams of Savage Pathfinder, they asked him to run it because he was like at the forefront of making that happen. And I was who he asked to be at his table. Shane Hensley, the creator of Savage Worlds, was also at that table, which was very intimidating because it was my very first stream ever. And it was awesome. Shane's great. He's lovely. He's very sweet, very kind. I had a really wonderful time. They asked me back for 2 more. I did 2 more shows with them. That was really amazing to launch their stuff. And then I found a community that led me to getting Mothership, right? I found another show that had the same GM as the third thing I did with Savage Worlds, right? And it like just spiraled into this career that I now have, right? Which is awesome. And like really meant a lot to me. So when the OGL thing happened, I was like, if I have these connections, what am I using them for? So I wrote Savage Worlds and I was like, hey, I don't know if you heard about this OGL thing, but you should maybe talk about how you guys have a cool license situation. You have an ACE license publishing agreement where the only rule is that people have to like get the core book from you. That's like the only rule for Savage Worlds. Like their rule is you can't republish core rule book rules in your book because that's going to mean that people aren't going to buy our stuff. So if you just have them buy the one book, they might not like any other setting we have, but if they buy the one book, then we're good, right? That's all they ask of you, I think, if you were going to be a licensee for Savage Worlds. So that was a moment when I was able to give back to a corporation that's not even really indie. They're indie by the numbers. Like if you look at who actually works there, how many people run Savage Worlds, it's a very small company, far smaller than you would ever think for the amount of attention that they've had. But like even at that level, you can really make a difference as a fan. I think my biggest, you made a difference as a fan, you made a stink as a fan. This is a story I don't think I've told on Chaotic Olsen before. If any of y'all out there know the comic book artist Sophie Campbell, she is trans, so you might know her under a different name. I'm not going to obviously mention her dead name. I have known her for coming up on, it feels really weird to say, 20 years. That's weird. but also true. So 20 years ago, I heard about Sophie's work. She was just kind of an artist for Exalted. Actually, she used to do art for the TTRPG Exalted. She had a comic called Wet Moon out with Oni Press, and she had like a lot of like fan art and stuff. She had one book that she did with Tokyo Pop that they totally undersold and didn't market properly at all. It wasn't manga, it was like an indie comic, and they totally like botched it. It's fantastic if you can get your hands on it. So Sophie draws characters who arguably look like me. That's how I found out about her. Someone was like, "You look like Sophie Campbell Dream," and I was like, "Me? I need to know who this person is." So one day, after I had been reading and just consuming the fuck out of Sophie's comics, I started following her on LiveJournal, right? So old, ancient social media. I started following her on LiveJournal, and I was like, man, she's so cool. She's so great, man. I fucking think this person's awesome. Like, I just can't get enough. And I would leave comments and stuff like other fans would and everything, right? Every once in a while. And one day there was a man, it was her first collab with DC. DC had an imprint that they were doing.
DC Comics, just to be
Yes,
clear, since we've got DC in chat.
DC Comics, yes. So DC Comics had an imprint that they did for a while that was targeted at teen and tween girls, like young women between the ages of like 12 and 18 that were trying to get them into comics. And the stuff they did were great. They worked with, I think her name's Mariko Tamaki. She did a few comics. I can't remember if I'm getting that name correct. Sophie did one. There were a bunch of like femme comic book authors. Kelly McDonald, I think, did one, if that's her name. I'm forgetting everybody right now because it's been so long. But Sophie did a comic called Water Baby, and in it, it's about these two girls that go on a trip. They live in Florida, and it's summertime, and one of them gets their leg bitten off by a shark. So it's about grief, it's about guilt, it's about survivors, feeling of being a survivor in a situation where you could have died. It's about road trips, right? It's a really beautiful coming of age story. This person decided to absolutely pan it. Like absolutely just smash it to bits. I read this guy's article. He was actually a pretty well-known comic book reviewer, right? Like he got tons of clicks. He had all kinds of ad sales on his site. Like there were tons of eyes on this comic. And he was being critical of it because the femmes were wearing short shorts and their tops were low cut and they, were hypersexual, right? And because Sophie, it was before her transition, he was even more excoriating because this was coming from someone who was not a femme in his mind, right? And he felt the need to tell everybody that in the world. So I read that and I was like, what the fuck is this? Sophie had actually posted about it, like, hey, I don't want to like link to the article or anything, but I had a real bad review of something that I just made and I feel really ashamed and I feel really sad and embarrassed and I'm really fucked up about it and I'm having a hard time. So if you guys don't hear from me for a while, that's why. And I was like, who fucking did it? Young Candace was just as full of piss and vinegar as old Candace, and I was like, right, I'm ready to throw down. So I found the article and I wrote to the guy and I was like, I'm not going to be shitty. I'm going to tell him why he's wrong. So I was like, hi, I'm a person of color. I don't really fit the gender construct of being a woman in the way that other people do. I don't fit being black the way people think I should. I don't fit the body type that people think I should. But what makes me feel like I'm not a fucking alien that's all by myself on planet Earth are comics like Sophie's. So when you have all of these criticisms, do you have children by any chance? Because it feels like there's a dad scolding Sophie for her point of view and how she sees things, which is a world that is real. These girls exist, I know, because I'm one of them, right? So you're excoriating this artist and this author for something you don't agree with personally. And that's a person that you did that to. That's a person with a real point of view, and that's people like me. And the guy wrote me back a full-length letter. Hey, I'm so sorry. I absolutely invalidated your experience. As a femme, as a person of color, as a person of size, you're right. If you wear short shorts, that is how you just look. You just happen to look like that. And you know what? You're right. I have 2 teen daughters, and I worry about them all the time. It never occurred to me that seeing themselves represented like this would actually turn the tides for them. I'm going to go back and I'm going to reread this and do a completely new review. He went back and did a totally new review, kept the old one up so that he could take the L publicly, posted a redaction, and then said, hey guys, this is what I think now. I went to Comic-Con to meet Sophie in 2009 because of that. We became really good friends. And like recently, we still talk on Blue Sky, and we now talk on Blue Sky. It's not as frequent as I would like. I'm doing everything I can to be a better friend. But like, she is amazing. I have watched her go from drawing Gem and the Holograms and TMNT fan art to being a history-making author and illustrator on both of those comics, right? Like, she has lived literally the American dream, right? I have watched her rise for 20 years. And all of that happened because I was like, offense to something that I love. I will stick up for this. Yeah, you make some good points. I understand why you're there, but also you're ruining it for other people, sir, right? Like,
Yes.
never doubt that sticking up for the things that you love and talking about the things that you love, especially if you can also be critical. Because if you can't be critical and you can't take that hurt from someone saying something bad about what you love, it can become toxic. Steven Universe is a very good example of that. That community is toxic as fuck because people are too precious about it.
There was a really interesting article that was actually written about video games, but again, we've talked about the crossovers. But it was someone writing about, it's a person who works in video games, works in gaming, makes video games for a living. It's put out several, and talking about people being like critical in the wrong ways, right? And is like, he was like, I dislike wholesome, cozy games and that whole community, because this community, and he's like, and this extends to, and he specifically referenced Steven Universe, you know, he referenced a bunch of other things. He's like, this community has mistaken something I don't personally want or like for discomfort. Yes. So when the entire point of the genre is you're supposed to feel, I think so, you're supposed to feel like comfortable and safe and cozy and happy here, and then someone is dating the wrong character, they lose their mind.
Yep.
And in fact, I have a really good friend who is Latinx, and she loves Steven Universe, and she is not like white presenting. You look at her and you're like, that's a person of color, but it's also not like glaring, right?
Right.
And she dressed up for Halloween one year as one of the characters of Steven Universe. I don't know Steven Universe, y'all. I worked at DeviantArt when Steven Universe was popular. All I know of Steven Universe is the porn, and I can't do it right now. Someday I'll get over that. We're not there yet, right?
There's lots of that.
Yeah, like, and again, there was the like, we are wholesome and also destroying each other and also porn, and I'm like, I can't, this is
too much.
Yeah. I could do My Little Pony, but I couldn't do Steven Universe. That tells you anything about that community. But she did, it was one of the gyms that had like the 4 arms.
Yeah.
And so she painted herself completely
Sardonyx?
pink. I have no idea. But had the 4 arms, right? Painted herself completely pink, and she's got great big lips, you know, so she accentuated them on top of that. And the community attacked her for appropriating a character which was clearly black-coded. And she was like, and it was just, she posted 2 pictures of herself on Twitter in this costume and was getting sandbagged by the community. And I'm like, friend, step aside. And I wrote up a whole thing. Y'all, the internet is really lucky that I went white hat, because if I had gone black hat, things would have been really different. I wrote up a whole thing about like, I am so sorry that I, you know, hurt people and offended people. I was just so excited as a person of color to see a character who shared features like mine, to finally see myself represented. And I did the whole, and again, I'm writing this for her. I would never post such a thing because I know better. But I'm like, and she's like, oh, I don't know. I'm like, post it.
Send it.
Trust me. Post it. And she did. And of course, the worst people never.
They're never going to come back. They're never going to say they're sorry. They just shit and move on.
But the tide turned pretty immediately. They went, oh, now that I look at you for 2 seconds, of course you're also a person of color. Like,
for me, what's hard is that specifically, and granted, we're on a tangent now, and that's fine.
That's what we
I'm
do
gonna
here.
just,
Oh no, we've never tangented here.
I'm heading down the lane. Okay, David is not here, so somebody's got to do it. Steven Universe rant. Listen, the other day I found out completely by accident that the voice of Priyanka Maheshwaran is a white woman. Okay, she is Connie, who is Indian's mother, who is also Indian, and her voice actor is a white lady. And for a second, I was like, I don't love that. That's not the best thing in the world. Couldn't have found an Indian lady, guys. Come on. I thought you guys were better than that. That show has people of color on it. And then I was like, Candace, why don't we touch grass and look at the rest of the cast? You know the rest of the cast. Pearl is arguably the most white-coated anything anyone's ever seen. She is literally see-through. When I think of Pearl, and I'm like, who would be a good Pearl? I think of my friend Kimber, and I think of you. I'm like, if I were to do a beautiful cosplay photo shoot where I dressed one of my closest friends up as a Steven Universe character, who would it be? I'm like, Kay would make a slammin' ass Pearl, and I will not hear the end of it. I will die on that hill, and I would be a fantastic Rose Quartz, and we would do wonderful photo shoots together. It would be lovely, right?
I actually know Pearl, so this is good.
That's where I'm at, right? Pearl is white. Her voice actor is Dee Dee Magno Hall, who is an Asian woman, right?
Mhm.
If you look at all of the characters in Steven Universe and you look at the overwhelming majority of the people that voice characters on that show, they are people of color. There are like 7 white people for every like 10 or 15 people of color that or even guests on the show, right? They've done not necessarily colorblind casting because Garnet is a black coded gem, right? And they have Estelle as her voice actor. That's perfect, right? But they do try to make sure that there is diversity inherent in their casting, even though one person doesn't match the correct ethnicity, right? In those situations, I can overlook that. I get cast as non-black people all the time, right? Why? Because of how I sound. And while I don't think that roles that are specifically for a person of color should go to somebody who's white, I don't think that we should be outlawing me to dress like Sailor Moon or someone to do a non-offensive Luz Noceda, right? That is white. If you have a brown girl as fucking as Amity and a white girl dressing up as Luz, I'm not gonna lose my mind. Obviously, she's not gonna be like, let me speak in the accent to you. That would be offensive.
Please don't. Please don't.
Right? That's offensive. But if I'm Black Sailor Moon, you can be White Garnet. Be White Garnet, girl. Get it. I'm not here to police you. I'm not here to tell you what's okay. Do you look as good as the black girl playing as Garnet? No. Is that your job? No. Your job is to just have a nice time and enjoy your day. And that's what you're doing. So why shit on someone for that? Why shit on someone? To me, that goes full circle back to the article too. Why shit on someone for liking D&D? It's not a perfect company that owns them, but people love D&D and have very serious memories attached to that. One of my partners, the reason that they love playing D&D is because their dad taught them how to play before he passed away, right? They played with their dad since they were 10 years old. They lost him at 19. So D&D, when they play that game, it is a memory,
Connecting,
right?
yeah.
It is them connecting to that past and to that ancestry and that history with their father. And there are a lot of people for whom D&D holds that special place in their heart, whether it was a friend, an uncle, a sister, a mom, right? Whoever. So to me,
also
yucking someone's yum,
it can just be
What's it doing?
comfort food.
yeah.
It can just be comfort food. We all look I have kinds of alcohol that I know I'm like, this is bottom mid shelf and it is my favorite kind of gin. It's not good, but I like it because I have
That's what you like.
memories attached to it, right? They have
Yep.
I watch Zoolander at least twice a year. It's not the best movie ever, but it makes me so I know I will always laugh when I
gets me
watch
there.
Zoolander, right?
Yeah.
D&D is very much for me. I love playing different systems. Like right now, my favorite system is our homebrew Acton Cthulhu because my GM is so great. It has nothing to do with the system. Well, a little bit to do with the system because it lets me build a really weird character that works. I love getting to build weird characters, right?
Sure.
But if I'm like,
The experience though counts
Yeah.
for a lot.
we're gonna jump in, we're gonna play something, like I'm having a bad day, let's do a last minute one shot. D&D is a system that I know that I can run or I can play. I can teach anyone D&D. You don't have to know D&D to play D&D at my table because I can teach. It's not that hard. When in doubt, roll a D20. And if you're rolling something else, I'll tell you, right? Like it's comfort for a lot of people. And yes, you should go out and you should try other systems and you should play. It will make you a better player. It will make you a better GM. It will make you a more creative person. it will help you have more tools and better options and be more creative and not get locked into. That was one of the funniest things in Exandria Unlimited, in the Critical Role, like their first like kind of mini spinoff, was they had Amy, I've lost her last name, Carrera, the voice actress for She-Ra, sitting at the table, right? And they touch this crown, and they get an image of webs and spiders crawling on them when they touch the crown. And everyone's like, well, like you can see the experienced players. And then sweet little Amy's like, do you think it has to do with some kind of spider queen? And like, you saw the look of terror on the veteran players' faces, because like, they're like, you're not supposed to know that. You're not supposed to. Of course, if you touch a crown and there are spiders, you're gonna think the crown belongs to a spider something, right? But because you're so trapped in Loth is a thing and I have to play other things, think outside the thing. I have pulled in lore and gods from completely different systems on purpose just to shake stuff up. I play a paladin of the flying spaghetti monster. Not just to be a joke. It's very funny, but also like, how do you create religious isolation in a world where the gods are real and there is proof and they are active? You have to worship a god that everyone knows is a joke. The one that, because if they're dead, doesn't matter, right? Yes, the best, it absolutely gotta have the strainer helmet. But yeah, like the more you play with these things, like the whole reason I play a paladin of the flying spaghetti monster is because I was watching a documentary on the Heaven's Gate cult.
That is perfect. That's perfect.
There's a very solid through line. There was one person in the cult who was told not to commit suicide, and it was his job to send tapes with the cult's message to anyone who wanted them. And I'm like, what is that like? How do you explore that in this setting? Oh, flying spaghetti monster. I'm not saying my brain works like most people's, but I am saying there is a through line. There is logic, if only to me.
Like, what are we playing TTRPGs for, if not to make dumb little shit that we're like, about?
And then the best part was when I hit
what
level
else is there?
Yeah, the best part of that was when number one, the whole talk to spiders and make David talk like a horse. That's that character. But the other great moment was, okay, I've hit level 3. I'm gonna make holy water. And he's like, oh yeah, you can make holy water? How you gonna make holy water, Kay? How you gonna make holy water, Kay? I'm gonna boil pasta. Take your inspiration and get out of my sight.
You're fired from this table, but also come back next week.
Yes. So yes, there are many reasons. See, Alaria and I, same brain. I'm so proud. There are many reasons to play. And again, everyone has a different comfort game, right? I know for a lot of people, any Powered by the Apocalypse system is their comfort because they're like, I've got my playbook. I can just hop in. I don't have to worry about the world. And meanwhile, I'm like, what is your lore before we play? You don't have a 15-page index of world lore that I could go through? Okay, I'll survive. I'm just not happy about it. Like, give me your lore, give me your gods, give me your political shit. I will fuck that up. Let me in.
Dear Kay, this 80s game that I'm working on right now is like the most planning I think I've ever done for anything I've ever run in my entire life. There was a lot of that character steeping creation, world building and all that stuff when I did my home game, my first thing that I ever GM'd. But it was also something that like happened along the way rather than we're starting the game and I have all of this. I was running a module for like the first 5 sessions, right? I was just sticking to the module, wasn't getting crazy, wasn't doing anything wild. And then eventually I was like, oh, I can just add stuff. I'm gonna start adding stuff. And then like I made a whole town that had certain things next door to other things. And then the liquor store is on the corner. And then there's a church and there's a lady named Sister Maria that's there. Like none of that's in the book, right? I just went crazy. I just went like, and I had like this surge. So now I'm using this if you want to talk about indies, shout out to Nerdburger Games. They have a system that I'm actually looking to try out soon. I feel like it's called Capers, and it's not about pickled little things. It's about it's about I think it's like a noir setting. I want to say, but it's superhero noir. Like it's supernatural superhero noir mystery stuff. It's really cool.
X Factor Investigations is one of my favorite comics. That is.
I feel like it's the same vibe as that. But the 80s game that I'm doing is not announced. We can talk because we're friends. It's called Lost in Memory. But it is using the system Good Strong Hands, which is by Nerdburger Games. And it's very new to me. It is a D6 dice pool situation where you pick, you assign certain numbers to your stats. There are 4 stats, and then whatever number you have in that stat is how many dice you roll to get the score that you need for the toughness, right? For the toughness rating. So like when I started thinking about this world, I was like, well, I really want to like not go completely outside the box with this. They've really already set you up. Reverie, which is the world that it's set in, right? The setting for that book, already feels like what I need, right? So why bother renaming it and coming up with spending hours? Because like I'm that bitch. I'll think for fucking 4 years about what I'm gonna call something, and it doesn't even matter at the end of the day. And my players completely miss it, but I've thought about it for hours and hours and hours and just wasted all that time.
I don't know.
So I was like, what?
That.
This is what I'm saying. So I was like, don't do that. Instead, stick with Reverie. So I was like, all right, let's do it. But over the past like 3 weeks, I've been jotting down all of these little ideas that come to me about places, about locations, about people, what they're doing, about how they worship in that place. And I'm like, what is happening to you, Candace? You don't do this. This isn't what we do. We show up to the table and the players do their thing and you guide them and that's it. Why are you doing all of this work? You don't have to do, but I love it. Like, I love it. I found something that I'm connecting with for like the first time ever where I'm like, like beforehand I'm connecting and I am getting there, right? And it's such a beautiful feeling. It's such an awesome experience. And I very much feel like when you dig in and you have that, sometimes it comes from a new system. I've never picked up this book before in my life, but I knew that I didn't want a system that was going to give me big magic, right? That was the only thing that I went in with. I was like, I need a system where magic is not big. I love Dungeons and Dragons. That is the fantasy game. If I need to learn how to run Dungeons and Dragons, I want to anyway. Maybe this is the time. Maybe this is the moment. But then I was like, magic is too big. How do I restrict my players? I can't have everybody being like fireball, right? Like, and then take out the whole forest. Like, I can't have that. This isn't a place for that. So how do I get there? And I was like, OSR? That's going to be really punishing, but they have low magic. Yeah. Maybe that's it. This game is based on the Neverending Story, which is why it's called Good Strong Hands. If you know that reference, the Rock Muncher says that when he's like looking at his hands and he's like mourning the people he's lost. It's a really beautiful moment in a children's movie that shouldn't be that good, but it is. I just watched it a couple days ago and it got me again.
Can I tell you my outrage?
35 years.
There was a thing going around on Twitter back when we were still on Twitter where people were like, I just went back and watched The Neverending Story and that movie makes no sense. And I'm like, the nothing got you. The nothing got
That's
you.
That's exactly what happened.
The nothing got you.
Got you, friend. Wake up. Is there a Gmork in your bed? Because I think there is. Kick him out. You don't need that in your life. But that's a system that like really leans into that, right? The idea of corruption, the idea of this nothingness that's coming to you. That's something where if you are in a situation where you have to destroy something big, if you have to glamour someone, if you have to divert a river flowing, if you have to build a dam of rocks and cause a huge avalanche that's the size of a mountain, all of those are big magic, right? And in this world, when you use big magic, there's corruption attached to that. There are some parts of the big magic that you can use because there's like, it's playbook style. So there are some corruptions that you can use that magic and eventually work off your corruption, work off your shadow, right?
Which is all we wanted from Urban Shadows.
That's it. Let me work it off, right? But what's cool about the system is that there are some, like the strongest magic that you can use, like destroying something that is up to the size of a house, which is GM's discretion. You could tell me that you're destroying something as big as Mar-a-Lago, and I could say, yeah, okay. But guess what? That has permanent shadow. That has a permanent damage to you forever, right? You can't undo permanent shadow because you carry that with you. And if you think about it, if you're destroying something that's as big as a house, you probably should remember that, right? Yeah. It probably should leave a mark on you. You know what I mean? You're destroying a bunch of people, arguably should feel bad. So that mechanic is what made me fall in love with that game. And it's what's helped kind of awaken me out of my box. I mean, every situation that I get into when I think about running a game, I always try to figure out how it can be Savage Worlds, because I love running Savage Worlds so much and no one else ever plays it. And I just want to tell people about Savage Worlds so bad because it's really fun and great.
You
But
know,
a
I'll
lot of
play.
times, though, it's so specific.
Yeah.
Right? Savage Worlds is great for action. Savage Worlds is great for westerns. It's great for horror. It's great for a bunch of stuff. It is not fantastic for magic. It just isn't, right? Small or large, any kind. So I very much feel like what you are saying, like I just want to triple down on that. If you are stuck in a TTRPG rut, whether it's with your project or someone else's, or there's something you want to create, there's something you want to do, there is literally, what Kay is saying is so truthful. There is nothing that is going to help you out more than looking at other stuff. Because as you look at the other stuff and you think on your project, you start to make those pathways as to why this doesn't work, which unlocks why this other thing does work. And it's magic. Like, it is real life magic. And gosh, I can't proselytize about that enough. I'm so glad that you said that, because it wouldn't have occurred to me to actually say that to you just now. So thank you.
I'm going to rewind just a tiny bit. And with your excitement about like, ooh, I could build all of this is coming. That was me. That's always me building God Plane and like taking these characters and going, how do I plug them into a world in a way that it feels not just seamless, but custom for those players? Because like, you know now, right? There are set pieces that you all get to. There are all those trials, but the goal is to weave everything in a way where everyone goes, this was for me. And it's like, yes, it is for you, but it's also plugged in certain ways. And it's so good when you pull it off and you see the player just being like, yes.
That's so powerful. And like, I really love your enthusiasm to go outside the box, especially because like you are someone who is critical of systems, as you should be, right? I love having conversations. Honestly, chat, one of my favorite things in the world is finding out that I have an opportunity and someone is asking me to help cast the table. And like, I almost always choose Kay because I love playing with Kay all the time. So I'm like, does Kay like this? And if they're like, we're doing masks, teen superheroes, I'm like, no. If they're like, we're doing space, I'm like, oh, what kind of space? The other day, someone was like, Traveler. I was like, oh, haven't played that. Let me see what Kay thinks. Kay's like, yeah, well, listen. And I was like, oh, here we go. So even though Kay was not like, yes, let's play, I still had a really great chat, which sometimes is really what you need to prepare yourself for the new system anyway.
Hopefully, again, so those of you who don't know, Traveler, you can die in character creation. And if you don't know that going into Traveler, it could be a very bad experience.
Oh my God. I love that though. Like, I love that. Like, I love that I can come to you and just be like, hey, pal.
And look,
what do you think of this one?
And this is what I try. And like we talked about last time, there is the bad Star Trek that we all agree which one it is, right? And I have watched most of it, not all of it. And even though it is the bad Star Trek and I don't like that series, one of the characters from that is a major inspiration for my Modiphius character. And again, like for Burton, Burton, major influence for that character. And then again, the more you play in these systems, the more you learn. Like D&D, I can build some wild characters in D&D. But oh my God, the Modiphius system. I was typing this out the other day and I'm like, in our home game, Burton is the team healer, team tank, necromancer, and a support character. Like all of these things, and it fits perfectly within this system. Couldn't do it just about anywhere else. So play those other systems and start figuring out, hydrating, what you like, what you don't like. And again, we spent a lot of time. We played a session of Urban Shadows, and we were both like,
well, we tried.
Yeah, we were like, this isn't it. This isn't. And I spent probably a month just obsessing over why don't I like this? Because it was really hitting me wrong. And it took me a very long time of talking about it. And we talked about it in our Discord, because I was like, y'all, help me. And it came down, there were a number of things, which included, I'm not a big fan of playbooks. I'm just not. I can do them. It's not my favorite thing. I like weird characters, and I feel like playbooks are too restrictive. A lot of people don't feel that way. They think playbooks give you plenty of options, which fair, agree to disagree. It just doesn't work for me. One of the things that bothered me the most, I don't like the dice bell curve at all. But the biggest thing was we were both, like, finally came down to the corruption. The fact, I don't mind taking corruption, but the fact that you can't undo it. So the fact that you found a system that has that mechanic, but does let you pull it back. Because that was what was killing us, is we were both like, I can't do anything fun without basically getting caught in a death spiral. And the point of Urban Shadows was to hit that death spiral. Right. But again, that wasn't communicated to us before we started playing, which would have changed everything about the character I would have brought. And
Yep. Especially because I feel like if you are playing a character in that system at the start of your journey, that's very different than playing a character that's been living there already.
Yes.
So when we came into the system, we were making characters that were already established in that community and had ties and bonds. It wasn't like, oops, we stumbled in, or oops, I became an imp or a vampire overnight, or oops, right? Like, that wasn't the situation. So even though we didn't have a lot of corruption starting out, we should have if we are already in this environment, right? That would have gone a long way. If I'm supposed to be shitty, let me at it, right? I got to be a terrible vampire therapist in fucking VTM, and now I'm like, I'll be terrible all the time.
Neither of us ever play terrible characters. Never. We don't do that.
Not as a hobby or anything. Why would you? No, but no, of course not.
I did play the worst character ever alive in Emergency Power.
No, I mean, being friendly, being good people. But this is what I'm saying, like, if you want me to be terrible, I'll show up. I'll do my fucking worst, man. But like, tell me the point is for you to be terrible. You're gonna have your character is gonna have a really awful time. I'm like, hurt me, daddy. Yeah,
exactly.
I want to have an awful time.
But if you tell me this is a really cool game of social bonds, oh, cool. I'm bringing in a social character. Oh, this social character would not last 2 weeks in this world.
Never. We immediately got into a situation that none of us had any skills to navigate whatsoever. We're like at a party, and David's like an old salt, gruff, grizzled old man who's like been around town a million times. He's killed a bunch of people. He's lived to tell the tale, right? Kay is playing Kinley, right? So it's just like
he's happy and wonderful,
proofed everywhere. Hello. Oh, you're going so fast. I love that, right? My character is like a bookseller, has like a bookstore, and is an imp, and like has all these like weird fairy deals with people, and like runs a burlesque club in their free time, and it's just like over it. And then Jen's like this mysterious vampiress that kind of knows people, and all of us are like, so what are we doing? And then we're in a party at a hotel, and I'm like, well, I don't talk to people. In case, like, I mean, I can talk to people, but I don't recommend it. David's like, I don't talk to people. Jen's like, do I have to talk to people? And that was the first session.
Like, Kinley can and will talk to anyone and everyone. It just might not go well for anyone other than Kinley. Kinley will have a lovely time. Everyone else might be screwed.
Every scene, it's like, Kinley, come on.
Base character.
A safe place we can find in this hotel where all of us can talk and nobody will be listening? Yes. Okay, we're gonna spend 45 minutes in that room then. Let's go. Like, fuck yeah. No. I really want to try that game again someday with somebody who's just going to be like, do whatever you want.
So
I feel like that might be fun.
My friend Stephanie, who ran the home game for Kinley, that lasted years and years, is getting ready to run Urban Shadows. Episodic.
Okay, don't get me into more games.
It's literally every episode is episodic, so you can show up or not. Any given point.
Beautiful.
So I will make.
If she's ever looking for people,
I will make the I will give you an invite to her Discord because it's not streamed. It's just like hop in and play. Because she just finished a bunch of stuff with the Avatar system, and it's like, okay, now Urban Shadows.
Yeah, I've been wanting to run Avatar. I bought into that Kickstarter before I was an Ennies judge, and I was like, I love Avatar so much, I'm gonna run it, and no one ever wants to play it, and I'm just like.
Well, a bunch of people in her server want to play it and run it, so.
That's exciting. Okay, that makes me feel better. I have the fancy book and everything. The fancy
Adam from Emergency Power. That is his favorite system ever. They love that system more than anything. Yeah, really? You need to play with them.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, I will produce.
Yay. Yes, please. Can we invite Jen?
No, Jen's never allowed on this channel. We don't like Jen.
Okay, yeah, we need to talk about that. Chat, don't worry about it. We have it under control. We're going to talk about it.
All right. Now that we have tangented all the way around to come all the way back to TTRPGs after not Jim and the holograms, after Steven Universe, which have gyms, but not maybe holograms. I don't know if it has holograms.
There are holograms in Steven Universe. Yes, there are.
There we go. We tangented back around twice. There we are. So basically, the moral of this story was indie TTRPG people are being loud. Help them amplify. Tell them they do cool stuff. And if you see an outlet writing about a system or a person or a thing that you like, comment. It will help. It will help immensely. And it is not cringe to tell your favorite creator that you like a thing that they did. And even if it is cringe, they're going to be like flailing cringing on the inside. DC said earlier, if he gets introduced to someone and they know who he is, he's like,
I saw that. I was there. I was at a party. And I was introduced to DC after DC was introduced to K. So he got a double whammy. He got a double hit. And it was great. I've never seen someone so... It was awesome.
That party was also very loud. It was very
intense.
All around.
Yes. But DC was so kind and so nice. That was my first time meeting DC as well. Very, very lovely person.
DC is amazing. Go watch Tech Friday.
Definitely.
Producer to the Stars has the best advice. But yeah, that would be my message coming out of this, would be like the moral of the story takeaway from Kay, because you all care about my opinion so much. Obviously you do because you're here, but celebrate uplifting. Don't celebrate dogpiling. Don't celebrate poo-pooing. Don't celebrate, like, let's make our little corner of the internet about being excited about cool things rather than shitting on bad things or good things. Lots of people shit on good things too.
And can I say, if you're going to shit on stuff, try to be an equal opportunity about shitting on stuff. I love shitting on things that I like because it's funny. I know that, for example, propaganda. I love me some Law & Order SVU. You will pry that show from me, from my cold dead fingers. I love it. I love Elliot Stabler. He's a tough bitch. And so is Olivia Benson in a different way. I fucking love it. But also, it's propaganda, guys. It's trash. It's garbage.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you can talk about the thing that you fucking love and how much you kind of hate it a little bit, right? But, like, be critical. Like, there's nothing wrong with that, especially because sometimes that can help someone fix a problem that they've got. Don't be mean, but be honest if you have valid criticisms, because sometimes that's what people really need, especially small creators.
I did not enjoy Urban Shadows. I sat down and figured out why I don't like Urban Shadows, and I'm not saying Urban Shadows is a bad system. It's just not the system for me, or at least not for that character, right? I love D&D. How much time have we spent on this channel commenting on decisions that were made? I love D&D. And look, y'all, I love Phantom of the Opera. It is problematic AF. It has the same problems as Labyrinth. My two favorite things.
Yep.
Same problems, right?
Yep.
But I love them, and I understand what's problematic about it, and I still like them.
Yes.
I can address that. So yes, spend that time, think about that yourself. Candace, who the heck are you, and where can we find you?
I'm Candace, sometimes called Magnificent. My pronouns
Often
are they,
called
she.
Magnificent.
You can find me at the Candace Marie on Blue Sky and sort of Twitter. At Candace Magnificent everywhere else. You can hear me in the upcoming sequel, Monaco 2, that is coming out in either Q1 or Q2 of 2025, which is right now. How did we get here? You can also hear more of me in the podcasts Frequencies, Bloom and Blight, and City of the Black Rose Herald of Shadows, which is over on 3BH. If you like my stuff, please feel free to retweet and support. I really appreciate it.
Hey, Rome, welcome on in. We are wrapping up. Your timing is not great, but it was great to see you at PAX Unplugged.
So great.
I'm Kay. I'm here. I do this on Tuesdays. I'm going to try very hard to start streaming video games again. But as some of you know, David's in a situation and my city is on fire and things are just a little bit complicated right now. So I apologize. You can find me, hopefully, it should be good to go this week, every other Friday, but this Friday specifically over on Entropy Emporium for the Weird Rides War, where I play Brandon, the Himbo Drake Warden Ranger, and he's now got a baby dragon, and someone gave this himbo a dragon. It's gonna be fine.
No. Oh no. Best friends, but also, what kind of trouble are they getting into?
Woo, it's great. Dragon is cat. Dragon is 100% a cat. And as I was saying earlier, please go over to our website, chaoticwholesomepresents.com. We have free resources, including Lines and Veils doc that is auto-updating and great, and our Modifius Acton Cthulhu character sheet. If you ever play a Modifius system, I'm working on a Star Trek version of it for Piper.
Meow?
Now that that's done,
Meow meow?
that's the next thing. So it'll be available when and if Piper. I feel like when and if Piper is an excellent tribute band name.
Very true. It's also when though, because I'm obsessed and I will never leave them alone.
Yes. I'm Brandon. You call me Brandon. Yeah, that breaking Eugenio with that was one of the highlights of my POTO is love ever since a little kid, problematic as hell. Phantom is not your perfect husband, but I will love him and I will go nuts for him and I will never claim the healthy vibes. Exactly. It is I can fix him vibes. We know it's toxic. We know it's not good.
But we're gonna do that for 2.5 hours. Don't
exactly. Sometimes we need fantasy. And yes, for those wondering, worried, questioning, very kind of you. I am fine. I am in downtown. I am far away from the fires, but we are helping out people where we can. And it's a whole thing. So that's all I've got for now. Gilmore has just arrived.
Hi, baby Gil.
Thank you all for spending your evening with us. We are going to go find someone to raid. I'm going to figure out who once we go to the end screen. But thank you all again. You all are wonderful. As always, be kind to yourself, be excellent to others, and we will see you next time.
Bye.